Okay, hi folks, welcome to OnlineGrinds.ie. My name is Enda Whelton and I'm the geography teacher for higher level Leaving Cert Geography here on Online Grinds. Now, basically what I'm going to go through with you is a kind of a brief 10-minute introduction to the Easter revision course that we have this year. Now, in terms of, I suppose, what the course will do for you, it will give you pretty much all of the regional and physical geography sections with hints and tips along the way, and you can look back through all the archive grinds that we have done in geography, and as a result of that then it means that you will be well set up for Leaving Cert Geography for the physical and regional section. So basically, if we're to go down through, I suppose, stage by stage what we'll be looking at, so I suppose for you this is kind of like a 10 or an 11 day, I suppose, revision schedule, and to suit your own needs at the time that suits you. So first of all, in day one, I would advise probably an overview of the course. You have the course outline, the 5 questions that need to be covered, and familiarising yourself with maybe last year's exam paper as an example, just to get the idea of the exam paper itself. Then maybe looking through, and in the first archive grind we went through the idea of an SRP, a significant relevant point, what it meant, the fact that it's a detailed sentence with factual information to the question, or 2 short sentences with factual information to the question, and how many you need, obviously 15 for a 30-mark question and that. So therefore that'll give you, the first archive grind will give you a kind of a background and an insight into what goes on in the Leaving Cert itself. Then what I'd say is to finish off day one is to have a look at, I suppose, the idea of the introduction to the concept of a region. So looking at areas like physical geography, economic geography and human geography, and we break those into regions. So it's like physical regions. So physical regions will be the likes of what you can see there on screen as the climatic regions. Maybe other examples of physical regions then will be the likes of mountainous regions, such as maybe the Alps, which crosses political boundaries. Then you have economic regions, so maybe the likes of the BMW region in the south of east of Ireland. So you have like core richer regions, and which would be the south and east, and then like peripheral regions, which would be the BMW. And then you'd also have the likes of human regions. So human regions would be those linked directly to human, like culture and language, like the one you can see there is Wallonia and Flanders in Belgium, and how they're 2 distinctive cultural groups, maybe the Gaeltacht in Ireland, the Basques in Spain. So to get an idea of as I said, the 3 different types of regions, so you have physical, economic and human. Then in day 2, I would probably say that look at the second archive grind, which would be the Mezzogiorno, or a peripheral European region. And the key areas of that, I suppose, the key learning objectives now are the same for most of the regions, the next 4 that we'll be looking at briefly. So you need to know 15 SRPs on physical processes, 15 SRPs on primary economic processes, 15 on secondary economic processes, 15 on tertiary economic processes, and 15 on human processes. So the different types of things you'll be looking at on that would be the likes of physical processes, the Apennines and the impact of it, the impact of the climate being so exceptionally dry leading to drought. Then you're looking at primary, secondary and tertiary activities and the history of primary and secondary activities, and looking at maybe the lack of services and the fact that they're trying to increase tourism. And then looking at human processes, the likes of the influence of the Catholic Church and that in the actual region itself. You can see I underlined physical processes and primary economic processes there as well, because they'd be the most popular things to look at in that section. Day 3 then would be our core European region, which would be the Paris Basin. So that's the 3rd archive grind, and that's the learning objectives of that, again the same: physical, primary, secondary, tertiary and human processes. And looking at areas then like the physical processes in the Paris Basin region, looking at the likes of the landscape, and it's flat and gently undulating and very, very good soils conducive to capital intensive agriculture. Then looking at secondary and tertiary activities, then the well-developed manufacturing sector, the well-developed services sector and tourism, Paris city being the most visited city in the world. And then looking at the human processes, or the agreeable lifestyle that people in the Paris Basin region have. So that would be our core European region. On day 4 then, which would be the 4th archive grind, would be the BMW region in Ireland, and that would be a peripheral Irish region. Now focusing on, like the physical processes in the BMW would be kind of associated with the likes of the mountainous landscape, the peat soils, which would be relatively infertile, and the limitations that can then have when you go down looking at agriculture and looking at maybe fishing in the region as well, and the impact of the common agricultural policy and the common fisheries policy. And then going down into secondary economic activities and the stage by stage developments then of secondary, and then tertiary and human then are probably less important. Again, I've underlined physical and primary for you in the BMW region, or the peripheral Irish region that we're looking at. Then in the fifth archive grind to look at on day 5 would be that of the south and east of Ireland, which would be a core Irish region or a richer Irish region. And on that then you'll be looking at again the same key subheadings as always, looking at 15 SRPs in each, but you'll be looking probably more there at secondary, tertiary and human processes. So in the likes of secondary processes, the well-developed likes of computer industry in the Dublin area, the pharmaceutical industry in the Cork area. Looking then at tertiary economic activities, predominantly the rapid developments in transport infrastructure, mainly Dublin-centric or Dublin-focused, but how the region is developed from that. Also looking at tourism in the region as well, and services, particularly in Dublin around the IFSC or the International Financial Services Centre. And then also you'd have human processes then as well, looking at population in the region as well. On day 6 then is to look at, I suppose, the complexity of region section I divide in 2. The first one would be on day 6 would be the key areas you can see there. So the north and south of Ireland, looking at political and economic and cultural interaction between north and south and how that has changed and the dynamic of that has changed over time. Then the next thing would be to look at the cool tempered oceanic climate, which is very, very straightforward because it mirrors completely what we've already done when we looked at the climate of Ireland and the BMW in the south and east. Then we would have a look at Spain, and within Spain there's 2 types of kind of questions within that. One is on Spain and that there are various cultural groups such as the Catalans, the Basques and the Spanish, and that's kind of one key question that comes up a lot. And then also you'd have just one cultural group then, and we'd be looking at the Basques then for that. The next thing then to look at is the European Union, and we're looking at 2 things in the European Union. Number 1 is the European Union expansion over time, in other words more countries joining time and time again, and what happened there. And then one of the very popular ones that's asked in the Leaving Cert is the one about the impact of the expansion of the European Union on one member state, and in this case we're looking at its impact on Ireland. On day 7 then are the 7 archived grind to look at the complexities of regions part 2. So the areas in that would be the growth and expansion of urban regions. Now again you'll notice that there's a little bit overlap, and I've done this intentionally to ensure that you'll benefit from it. So therefore the first urban region would be Dublin City and how that expanded, and then the second urban region would be Paris City and how that expanded. And again we've already looked at them in the regional section, but they are the 2 most popular questions that come up in the Leaving Cert of this group here that you can see here. Then you have a language boundary changing over time, so the decrease in the size of the Gaeltacht. Then you have an industrial region in decline, or the Nord region, the old heavy industrial region in the Nord, which has suffered from deindustrialization over time, and how the French government have managed to counteract that. And then the last one on that then is changing political boundaries and how this has influenced cultural groups. So you're looking at East and West Germany and its reunification, and how the interaction and the problems and issues that are created as a result of amalgamating them back together. On day 8 then to look at plate tectonics, for instance, you'll be looking at global crustal plate boundaries like divergent boundaries, convergent boundaries, transform boundaries. You'd also be looking at areas there, particularly the likes of the human impact of an earthquake that you have studied. So looking at the Indian Ocean tsunami as an example. So the ones underlined there would be the most popular questions. On day 9 then you'll be looking at volcanic activity, or volcanoes, and then folding and faulting. Now the main questions on that would be explain where volcanoes occur in the Earth's surface. So that's the most popular one in the volcano section. And again it would be linked back to the idea of plate boundaries and hotspots and things like that. And then also write an account of volcanic like extrusive landforms, so the likes of maybe like the Mid-Atlantic Ridge, the likes of maybe a particular volcano, the Hawaiian Islands, things like that. So and looking at the likes of shield versus dome volcanoes and that. Then also looking at, moving on then to day 10, you'll be looking at weathering, karst and weather maps. So obviously weathering, basically weathering is like physical weathering and chemical weathering, and they tend to ask either of them maybe every second year. And then one of the key ones to learn is the one on the karst landscape. So you need a surface karst feature and an underground karst feature. The surface karst feature being the limestone pavement, the underground being the cave, or calling it dripstone deposits, depending on what the question asks. And again, just before that, you can see an understanding of the process of how the burn is formed, or limestone formation, and also the process of carbonation. And you bring those then into your explanation of your surface and underground feature. Moving on then to the last day of your Easter revision course will be the grind, the last grind on the list, which will be looking at rivers, coasts, glaciation, mass movement, and maps and photographs. All looking at it for the short questions. So you just go through and get an intrinsic understanding of those different concepts and ideas. And then from those four then, rivers, coasts, glaciation and mass movement, you need to go into detail on one of them. So you need basically to have one feature of erosion and one feature of deposition on whichever one you choose or that you've studied in school. And I have in the notes that you'll get there for that archive grind, you'll get those answers there for you. All again 30 mark or 15 SRP answers for those key ones. Right folks, so basically if you have any questions or queries beyond that, please don't hesitate to ask. Go on to the forum, and you know, I know the grinds are archived, but you can ask any question on the forum and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. So I hope to see you soon on OnlineGrinds.ie, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care.